that the Abrahamic religions are for beginners because there's a lot of obedience, very little improvisation, very little deviation from a standardized normative approach. So I would argue that there is far more individualism in as far as the religiosity is concerned, far more individualism in our tradition. I also explain in this book, dharma cannot be equated as religion for this very reason, because religion is conformity, and that conformity is God gives this one final prophet or one son some edicts, and that has to be followed, and there is no such thing as I had an enlightenment experience, I'm following mine. Or I'm following Raman Maharshi because he was enlightened and nothing to do with what any text says. I'm following my guru. The idea that there is a living master who is enlightened is very scary to the Abrahamic religions. Because in the Abrahamic religions, you might not know this, but to be a saint, one has to be dead. You can't have living saints. In the Christian church, they have had tens of thousands of saints. They have a list of them. And which date each one was canonized, by which pope, and what was his accomplishment, what miracles he performed that made him worth being a saint. Not one saint in the history of Christianity was made a saint while they were alive. They all had to be saint only after they're dead. Why? Because a living saint would be a threat to the institutional authority. The living saint could say, I am enlightened, I have the ultimate knowing, I have reached unity consciousness, and I'm telling you this, whatever these church people are saying, they're a bunch of babus and bureaucrats, they don't know. People will go to the living saint. They will not go to the institution. So, to create institutional authority, you have to get rid of the living saint tradition. Christianity did that. Many mystics were actually persecuted and killed. And those who were canonized as saints were only after they're dead, because the dead guy is safe, he can't talk back. He can't teach anything, he can't be a threat. You see what I'm saying? And you have to be dead for 5 years. That makes sure that you're really dead. In rare examples like Mother Teresa, they can waive the 5 year and make it 3 years. But you got to make sure the guy is gone dead. A dead saint, canonized as saint, becomes property of the church. He's like a brand. He's like a mascot. I can do fundraising in his name. I can have schools and colleges. Now I can make up whatever I want about him. He's not going to argue back. He's kind of my property. So the living saint tradition versus the dead saint tradition, the living enlightenment in us as Swachchitanand, living enlightenment in us, versus one person in history only had that experience, nobody else can. No Christian is allowed to say that he is Jesus and he can have the same experience as Jesus had. He cannot. No Muslim will agree that he has the potential, maybe difficult, but among all the Muslims, some people will achieve the potential of having the exact same experience as Muhammad. They cannot. It only happened once, it will never happen. You don't even have the potential. But I'm allowed to say that I have the same potential in me as any rishi ever had. I can have because I'm Satchitanand, I am the exact same thing that he is. I'm not any different. Whether I've realized it or not is up to me. You see? So this is a huge difference between the individualism and freedom. They keep saying they're more free, but I'm pointing out reasons why we are more free. These are all ideas of freedom. We don't have the bondage to history. They are bondage to history, bondage to dead prophet, bondage to one event, one book, one canon, one church which is going to enforce it. We don't have that. So this is a very big difference.